it's me, Estella, and I'm back with another video. At some point in time, you probably will be taking the SAT if you are watching this video, and consequently taking the SAT reading section and getting a score on that. A lot of people have been asking me to make a video specifically about the SAT reading section, so I'm planning on making 2 videos. This video is going to be just a general overview of the SAT reading section and how to get a 700 plus on the SAT reading section. And in a separate video, I'm going to then talk about some specific time management skills or strategies and just my own personal strategies that helped me get a 750 plus on the SAT reading section. So that's going to be a little bit more specific, but this video is just going to be about some resources that you can use and general practice tips and tips that I personally implemented to get a good score on the SAT reading. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video and find it helpful, and if you do, share it with your friends or people that you know that are taking the SAT and spread the word about this video. And also be sure to subscribe because I am going to be posting more SAT, ACT, AP exam videos in the next coming months and just very far into the future. So if you want to see more standardized test videos, then be sure to subscribe. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video and let's get into it. So the first thing that I want to say is calm down, it will be okay, you can get through this. The number one thing that you need to remember when you're preparing for the SAT reading is that you can do this. I think especially with the SAT reading and writing sections, it can be really frustrating because you feel like it's not really like the math section where you just learn the formulas and just do tons of practice questions. Sometimes it can feel like you're having a mental block where you're not getting past a certain score. But trust me, if you follow these tips and you keep practicing, you can and you will score better. And a lot of it's also mental, so you can do this, and that's the number one thing that you should remember before we get into all of the specific tips. You need to be familiar with the SAT reading section, how it's scored, and what it's comprised of and what it tests. There are 2 sections in the SAT reading. That's just a general term, but it's actually evidence-based, I think, reading and writing. So there's actually 2 sections that you need to be concerned about if you want to get a 700 plus. So the 2 scores, the SAT reading and SAT writing scores, are combined to get a total from between a potential score of 200 to 800, 800 being a perfect score. All of the questions are multiple choice and they're all based off of passages. Typically in the reading section, the evidence-based reading section, you'll find passages on science or history or something taken from literature. And then in the writing section, they're usually also related to like an article or something like that. Usually more straightforward language than the evidence-based reading section. There are some specific things tested both on the SAT reading and SAT writing sections, including command of evidence, words in context, and analysis of history and science and evidence. All of the details of these specific benchmarks, I guess as you can call them, are on actually College Board's website. If you look up the SAT reading section on College Board, they kind of have more details about that. But pretty much that tells you that there are different kinds of there's different kinds of questions that you then have to approach in different ways if you want to get as many as possible right, because you can't really miss too many if you want to get a 700 plus on the SAT reading. So the reading section, pretty much you're just going to have passages and then you're going to have questions that might say specifically what sentence or paragraph you have to find a certain piece of evidence, or you have to know the overall plot and what is the main point of the story or the tone, as well as maybe you might need to define a certain word in a context. There's a lot of different kinds of questions for the SAT reading, kind of like that. And then for the SAT writing, it's a lot more focused on grammar. Pretty much the whole thing is just fixing grammar mistakes throughout the passages and making sure that everything looks correct. And it could be switching one word for a better word, so you would have to look at the previous sentence, following sentence to figure out which word would be the best one, or just simple commas, choosing whether you should put a parentheses or a dash or a semicolon, things like that. They're quite different sections, and that's why you need to do well on both of them if you want to get a 700 plus, but it's really important to know what's on the two tests before you even start preparing. So take a full length practice test in the amount of time, the full pretty much 4 hours of testing in one sitting, and that probably you should do that on the weekend unless you have time after school, because it will take quite a bit of time, and you probably want to find a moment when people aren't rushing into your room and asking you for help, or you don't have anything scheduled. But it's really important to take a full-length practice test, the full 4 hours, all of the sections, including the essay if you're doing the essay. The reason behind this is you want to know how you will do in the testing environment. You probably will do a little bit better at home since it's more comfortable for you and you're not as stressed, but it's still really important to see how you're scoring on the SAT reading section, both the evidence-based reading and the writing sections, when you're timed and also doing them consecutively. So after you've done the practice diagnostic test, you should go over your mistakes and see what are your weaknesses and really evaluate what you're doing wrong. For instance, let's say you end up not answering the last 5 questions and you randomly bubble them in, then that probably means that you are having timing issues and you should really focus on timing. So you should start doing tests and actually cut the time by 5 minutes so that you just keep doing the tests in a shorter amount of time and get used to doing them really fast. And the same thing is for the writing section. If you're running out of time on that section, then you should also cut down the time that you spend on that section as well. And also just which types of questions are you missing. For instance, I personally, for some reason, had a lot of trouble in the beginning with the words and context in the evidence-based reading section and had to work on just that. So it's really good to know which types of questions you're having trouble with so you can really drill those weak areas and maximize your score. So the next thing you should do after you've done that is practice, practice, practice. And obviously that's the most general tip that anyone could possibly give you. However, I will tell you right now about some specific resources that you can practice with to even better your score, improve your skills on. I recommend saving the official practice tests until the end of your study schedule, probably like 2 weeks or 3 weeks before. If you're studying for like really long term, pretty much you should be doing all of the official practice tests that are on College Board. So save all of those except like the first diagnostic test for the end. Before you start doing those official ones, the best resources I recommend are UWorld. They have really similar types of questions for the SAT, and they were super helpful for me when I was preparing. I also use Crack SAT. They also have some good practice questions and just materials there. They're not as similar to the SAT as UWorld's are, but they're still are a lot of different types of practice questions, so it's really good if you're really struggling with the SAT reading section and just need a lot of practice. Khan Academy is not that great, but I still recommend it for if you need extra practice again for the SAT and you're like really not there yet to the 700 plus, then definitely use Khan Academy as well. And for the writing section, I actually recommend doing the ACT writing. There's a lot of overlap between the ACT and SAT writing. I noticed that personally when I was preparing for both the SAT and ACT. So I also recommend doing some ACT writing sections just because they're pretty similar and it can also help you hone your skills related to grammar and things. And finally, you should also do the PSAT practice tests, the reading and writing sections, because there's also some overlap with those questions and the SAT since they are made by College Board. And there's typically some pretty similar questions, so I recommend also doing the official practice tests that are on College Board as well. You guys, is to really go over all of your mistakes and all of the questions that you guessed on. So even if you were like 50-50 between 2 answer choices, mark that as something that you got wrong, even if you end up guessing and getting it correct, just because you want to try to eliminate any possible mistakes. I definitely recommend getting a notebook, writing down all of the mistakes you made and what you can do better and why you think you made that mistake so that you can really remember that kind of question and the mistake and then avoid that in the future. So I definitely recommend doing that. My next tip for you guys is to read a lot as you're preparing for the SAT. I particularly recommend reading articles on the news or reading kind of older styled books like from maybe the 1900s or 1800s, just because there are passages that are pretty sometimes difficult when it comes to reading. So I definitely recommend just reading maybe some classics and getting kind of used to just reading a lot. I honestly think that that was one of the things that helped me the most. And my last tip for you guys is to skip any questions that you're unsure of. I personally have done a lot of standardized tests over the past 4 years, and with every SAT and the ACT that I took, it's so important to just skip the questions that you have any doubt on. Like if you have a slight doubt and you don't understand what the question is, just skip it. It's really weird, but I sometimes just skip the question, and like I would waste some time on it in a practice test or like even on the real test, like 30 seconds, and just completely not understand it. Go through the rest of the test, come back to it, and then it suddenly just makes sense. It's the weirdest thing, but sometimes our brain just like glitches and doesn't understand something, and then you take a break, you come back, and it makes sense. And this really works. So any doubt about any question, just ruthlessly go forward in the test and just ignore any questions that you think are weird or you don't understand. So that's all that I have for you guys today. Hopefully my tips were helpful, and I wish you the best of luck with your SAT. Hopefully you will get the score that you want, and I'm really hoping that my tips were helpful for you and the resources and all of that sort of stuff. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video and found it helpful, and again, leave a thumbs up and subscribe if you want to see more standardized test videos. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time. Bye guys!